Yoink!
You really think this is a good idea, Yogi?
Of course it's a good idea, Boo Boo Boy. It's lunchtime, and I'm sure...
Some people assume critics hate video games. That, of course, is nonsense. I mean, playing through this kind of cheaply produced electronic detritus requires the most genuine love of video games imaginable. If I didn't like video games, I would have hung myself with an AC adapter a long time ago. Which leads us to Yogi Bear. No, not the 1960s animated classic, the 2010 feature-length catastrophe and the inevitable video game adaptation. Movie critics have done their best to explain why Yogi Bear is an awful movie, and anyone who knows anything about cartoons will tell you this kind of ill-conceived animation aberration is made from the very worst trends in what people currently refer to as animation. And now it's my turn. Now, to be fair, the beloved bear isn't as bad in game form as he is in his computer-generated bastardization of a movie, but that's not saying much. And Yogi Bear the game isn't much either. Yogi Bear is developed by Monkey Bar Games, a studio that regularly turns out licensed games based on television shows and movies. A Monkey Bar's resume isn't a document worth bragging about, but in a sense, Yogi Bear does provide a moderate sense of accomplishment. From a terrible movie, they made a game that's marginally less terrible. Yogi Bear is a side-scrolling platform game, a truth which puts it ahead of the curve, quite frankly. It may be generic, but a generic 2D platformer is always preferable to a generic 3D beat-em-up, a form kids' games take all too often. In fact, to its credit, Yogi Bear steals as many conventions from games like New Super Mario Bros. And Donkey Kong Country Returns as it does picnic baskets. You play the game as Yogi Bear himself. Perhaps a result of the bear's monumentally repulsive CGI remodeling, the public just isn't visiting his Jellystone Park as much as it used to. With the park in danger of closing, Yogi decides to help Ranger Smith keep Jellystone open by taking photographs of the endangered animals which live there.
There he is, Mr. Ranger. One wolf of the gray persuasion. Snap away, Boo Boo Boy.
Smile, everybody.
And obviously, Yogi does that by jumping on platforms. He may be smarter than the average bear, but one wonders if the average bear might be better at platforming. It may borrow ideas from other modern side-scrolling platform games, but the game doesn't implement those ideas very well at all. The level designs, a paramount aspect of any platformer, are painfully boring, and the gameplay mechanics are worse. Aside from a temporarily disabling belly flop, Yogi has no means of defending himself. Even after he slides or slams through them, they bounce right back to life, and your best bet is to simply avoid them at all costs. It's even less fun than it sounds, and in fact, it's kind of frustrating. A single touch from an enemy costs you a Yogi. Factor in rigid motions and occasionally unresponsive D-pad controls, and you're left with a picnic basket filled with peanut butter and irritation sandwiches. The general public proves time and again to have no comprehension of what makes something good. Yogi Bear's raked in more than $66 million since December, and that reflects the enjoyment of substandard animation on an almost incomprehensible scale. But you undertoads know better. With no multiplayer component, with graphics at least a generation old, and with the most boring levels this side of Jellystone, this sacrilegious version of Yogi Bear is one species worthy of extinction.